on in the background, but I just wanted to say that this video is more like a day in my life. As I was editing this, I kept thinking that no one's gonna want to watch this because I don't have a super interesting life. I really don't. I feel like when I watch people's YouTube videos of stay-at-home moms, they're going out and they're doing things with their kids, they're getting, you know, groceries. I don't have that privilege right now. We are a one-car family, and so it's hard for me to get out during the day. Come here, honey. It's hard for me to get out and do things during the day, just because that's the stage of life we're in right now. What? What's the matter? Mwah, I love you. I just want to encourage you that if your life is like mine, where you're not super on the go 24/7 and you do in fact stay home for the majority of your day, but that is okay, because I think sometimes we get caught up in like the influencer culture that is very consumer based, and I mean, I get it. I get it, why it is the way it is. Pinch your fingers. A normal mom who stays home and the majority of my day is spent either taking care of my kiddo here, or I'm just really in the kitchen a lot, or cleaning, and that's the gist of my day, and I don't find it boring. I really don't find it boring. I find it very fulfilling, and I really love this life that my husband has given me, and that this life that the Lord has given me, and I'm just very, very thankful for all of it. Without further ado, here is the day in my life. Thanksgiving, and bless you. You good again? Oh, you got it, good. And I am just in recovery mode. I am trying to get my house back in order. My husband did clean for the most part my kitchen last night, which was such a blessing because I was dreading doing all the dishes that have accumulated over the weekend, because what happened was we had Thanksgiving. I was wiped out Black Friday. My cycle came, and so then I was washed out and just didn't have energy. So he did some of the work, and so today I'm just going to be going and making sure everything is just reset. I do have some projects later this week I need to do. I need to completely reorganize my daughter's room because it's a disaster today. This we need to figure out because I hate looking at all the clutter up there. We have a very small house, and so I don't have a lot of storage to put things in, so I'm gonna have to figure out something. So this is my sourdough starter. I consistently forget to feed it, so it looks like this, but it's nothing that a couple feedings is not gonna fix. Something you'll learn about me is that I don't really follow rules very well, especially when it comes to the kitchen. Sourdough can seem intimidating at first, but I promise once you learn the basic ins and outs of it, you don't have to be as rigid as people like to make it seem. I've also made my starter out of freshly milled flour, which has been very interesting to try and learn because it's so different than store-bought flour. This is my Nutri-Mill. I absolutely adore this. If you are in the market for a mill, I highly recommend this one. So what I normally do is just a 1-to-1 ratio of flour and water. So I typically just do a cup of flour and a cup of water and then mix that in and then discard the next day. I left my coat in my husband's car, so I had to use his jacket, and it made me feel like a lumberjack. It was a pretty breezy, sunny day, so I decided to line dry some clothes, but man, was it chilly. I think there is a misconception that you cannot line dry clothes in the winter. A lot of times we think of nice warm summer and fresh sheets off the line from the summer breeze. It's really interesting though how line drying in the winter works compared to the summer. So when you're line drying things in the winter, they will freeze through a process called sublimation. It's essentially like freeze drying your clothes, and it really does work better if there's snow on the ground and it's a drier day where there's not a lot of moisture. I also really enjoy how much line drying makes you actually slow down in your day. Not only does it take time to put clothes on the line and then take them down, but it's also a longer drying time in the winter. It really makes me appreciate all my ancestors in the past that probably would have had to line dry because dryers were not a thing. It also gives me an opportunity for fresh air and sunlight, which everyone needs, especially the morning sun. I really do not like wasting things, and so I have a leftover turkey carcass from our Thanksgiving and a turkey neck and some bones that I stored away. So I am going to make a turkey bone broth. Advent season is one of my favorite seasons of the year, so I love pulling out our Advent wreath. Every Sunday we will light a candle during family worship, we sing some carols, we read scripture readings relevant to Advent season, and it's just a really great time. I was sent a beginner package from Force of Nature. If you do not have Force of Nature, I highly recommend this product. I love it because it's non-toxic, but it's just as powerful as bleach. As a mom, this is a great thing to have on hand. So at least a couple times a week, I am working on practicing making bread with the freshly milled flour. It is so different than normal bread making with like bread flour because of how much water the flour absorbs. And I've kind of just been winging it. I haven't really been using recipes. I did about 3 tablespoons of butter or any oil that I have on hand, and then some sugar and some warm water, get that all mixed up. If you don't have a dough whisk, you need to invest in one because it makes life so much easier for just mixing things that are hard to mix, like bread dough. If you watch here, you can kind of see how the flour just starts absorbing the water. Sometimes I accidentally add too much flour because it doesn't look like it's coming together, and I will need more flour because I am impatient and I forget that this absorbs a lot of water. If you are familiar with baking with freshly milled flour, let me know below. I would love to hear any advice you may have for me. It's all a work in progress. The weird thing about freshly milled bread doughs is that you have to add the yeast a little bit later. Or at least that is what I've learned works best for me to get successful loaves. I had noticed that the wind really started to pick up, and I don't have the best clothespins for holding things on my line. I really should get new ones. So I decided that it was time to bring things in. They were mostly dry for the most part. The towels were slightly damp still, but that's fine. I will just stick them in front of the vents inside. have the dilemma that I'm sure almost every mom has on whether to get the house tidied and picked up from probably the chaos of the day during nap time, or to rest and do something for myself during nap time. But the kitchen really needed cleaned up before dinner tonight because I cannot cook in a dirty kitchen. I like to be able to just throw things in the sink and not have to worry about it right away. And if you have a backed up dish sink, that's not gonna work. So we have always bed shared ever since my daughter was basically a newborn, so the transition into even just a crib for nap time has not been the best, which I totally get because all she's ever known is being able to sleep next to us. We still have not transitioned her into a crib at nighttime, and I honestly cannot bring myself to do it. I am just so attached to her, and my husband as well. We just love having her in our bed with us. So I am nap trapped with Bluey in the background. I think we're just gonna hang out here for a little bit because I savor these tiny moments of just having her on me like this. It's gonna make me cry because I know some days she's gonna be too big, so I'm just gonna slow down for the day. She might be for a little longer, and she'll probably wake up within the next hour or so. This time of day is typically when I start prepping dinner. Depending on what type of dinner I have, I like to prep ahead of time in the morning, and then it's not so stressful during, like, I call it like the dinner rush, when you're trying to get food on the table but your kid's grumpy and she wants fed but you don't have dinner yet, that kind of thing. I don't know what kind I'm making. I am leaning towards either a Tuscan shrimp, like creamy shrimp with sun-dried tomatoes and garlic, or I would love to make a wine sauce. I love wine sauces. I think they're delicious. Cooking with wine, I think, really elevates dishes, makes them feel, in my opinion, more fancy. I thought my wine might be bad. I'll have to taste it. I don't think it's bad. I think it's still good, which is good because Sauvignon Blanc. I don't know. I'm not French. I am terrible at pronouncing things in other languages. It's just not my thing. The one thing I love about bread making is how amazing it makes the house smell. What I'm gonna do is just run butter over the crust of this. I've noticed that if I don't do this, it gets too hard and it's just not as enjoyable. I like it with a softer crust. Okay, so I knew that this was gonna happen. I always have flawless loaves that come out with my nonstick pan, but I am dumb and don't wait long enough with my glass pan, and this is what always happens to me. You'd think I'd learn. I'm going to show you how to make a wine sauce. It's super simple. So I added about 3 tablespoons of butter, get that stirred around in our little cast iron pan that I have. You can use any regular pan. We're gonna melt that down, and then I'm gonna add some garlic to it. You can also add aromatics to it, like rosemary or whatever else you may want to add. I believe I doubled this recipe because I like having more sauce, so I think this is a half a cup of wine that I just poured in slowly. Then I just let that simmer for a little bit to cook off some of the wine, and then we're going to add in some heavy cream. This is about 1 cup, I believe. You want to do this really slowly though, because if you add it in too fast, it can curdle your heavy cream. So you just want to slowly add it to the pan in little tiny increments while consistently stirring. Here I am adding some salt. I don't have a measurement, I usually just eye seasonings. And I am also adding in some Parmesan cheese. It would have been better if I had fresh Parmesan cheese, but I just didn't have that on hand, and honestly it's quite expensive, so we just used the very cheap stuff. I'm just gonna let that simmer for a little bit and thicken up, and then I'm gonna add in my shrimp. This is already pre-cooked shrimp. Normally I don't like buying pre-cooked shrimp, but this is all Aldi had at the time. I honestly prefer buying uncooked shrimp because it's just easier to cook with, in my opinion. You could always make this thicker by making a roux with just a 1-to-1 ratio of butter and flour in the beginning. However, it's not necessary, but shrimp and grits is one of our go-to meals in this house. After supper, we just do a quick cleanup. This is my little vacuum that I absolutely love. And then my husband brought in the mail and I actually got my Temp Drop. Temp Drop sent me a little monitor and I'm so excited to be using this. I'm hoping to talk about fertility awareness in the future. I'm just very excited to actually use this. I don't use any hormonal birth control. It's just bad for your body and I have very strong opinions against it. So we do fertility awareness methods for both pregnancy prevention and pregnancy planning. But today I am canning up some turkey bone broth that I made from the carcass of our turkey from Thanksgiving. And I wanted to show you how I do it without a pressure canner. Now, here's my disclaimer. The USDA says that you should not water bath low acid foods. So I am not following USDA guidelines. If that is an issue for you, do what you want in your own kitchen, but in my kitchen I feel comfortable enough to not go by USDA guidelines, and I am not responsible for anything that may happen. If you do choose to can this way, this is how I can. This is also how a lot of old order Amish and Mennonites do can. Some of them don't even have pressure canners, so that is what I'm doing. I'm just gonna strain off the broth. Really should invest in a larger strainer for things like this. Ooh, this smells so good. I'm really excited. Alright, so we got that strained off. Now I'm just going to take all my jars, put a funnel in them, and then ladle the broth in. These were all sanitized already. I went ahead and did that. These look so yummy. It's a little cloudy because I accidentally let it boil, so that's why it's cloudy. And then this one we're not gonna can. I'm just gonna stick in the fridge and either drink or give to my kiddo as a drink, and what. Process time for these is 3 hours at a rolling boil. So I have a separate little kettle that I keep nearby my pot that is hot at all times, so I can add water because that water will evaporate. We're not quite at a rolling boil yet, so we're just gonna stick that lid back on, but I can hear it. Definitely, I would say that is rolling. So what I'm gonna do is grab my canning insert that holds the cans and get these started. So I want to make sure that there's enough headspace over top of these jars. So I have this nifty little tool that has a marking on them. I'm going to do, I think, 2-inch headspace, hopefully. Yep, 2 inch, we're good. I've started our timer for our broth. I'm going to keep an eye on it periodically to refill it with water when it needs it. This is my little kettle that we have so that we can replenish this when we need to.